Hey everybody, welcome back to Visual Novel Book Club. I'm your blouse.
He sure is, folks.
Keep it in.
I'm your blouse, slow move.
Well, we're keeping I'm your blouse, slow beef. Whatever. Fine, whatever. With me, of course, my good friend Jim.
Hey everybody.
My good friend Turbo C.
Hey.
My good friend Polahoko. My good friend Oren Ronan.
Hi, everyone.
My good friend Devious Vacuum.
Sheba Shabo.
I'm off tonight.
Look, we're too far into the episode to re-record it. We can't.
I don't think I've ever picked Polahoko as the second person, like the first pal, or whatever. I think
someone's got a spreadsheet somewhere.
Yeah, I've got a spreadsheet that lists which number pal I am for every episode.
It's literally scrawled on his wall. It's like, damn it, not again.
I keep track of which one I am. Right now, I'm number 1 and number 3.
It is a friendship ranking system, for those of you that didn't know.
Yeah. I'm winning, by the way.
It's our own game of like Mafia, Werewolf, or whatever.
He always picks himself first.
In the end, it'll spell out a special message for everyone who paid attention.
Speaking of paying attention, what the heck happened this episode?
Wow.
Well,
A lot happened, actually.
What?
And that's it. Episode.
Yeah, that's it. Buy our book.
But did you think they had the same problem that they started with the most interesting thing and then things went down?
Yeah.
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 I was so they kind of have 3 big story arcs that they kind of have to wrap up, and Harak even says this. I forget how he quantifies it, but yeah, basically the first one is the most interesting. The second one was probably where they should have ended it, and then they have the third one, which is
Yeah, it kind of just whimpers out at the end.
peters it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But first, we stopped when Haruaki goes back to the monster.
back to the present.
Right. After
Yeah.
getting after getting all those keys from the last episode, we have a new option, which when the big monster comes, we can either despair or call out for a certain person, and the certain person is the sheep.
And the sheep is like, "What the fuck are you doing? I told you not to come back here."
And we're like, it's okay, I figured it out. This is going to be so cool if we do it right.
But, like, it is not. The sheep is absolutely right. Haruki's an idiot because his plan is, like, I need you to send me back again. Because the sheep explicitly said, I can't send you back again. This is a one-time thing. And Haruki's like, so can you send me back again?
Not just send me back again, but also go back 2 days before where the loop starts.
Also, Haruki knows the sheep is in control of the loop, or well, his loop, I guess. So he could have contacted the sheep at any time. It didn't have to be at the end of times.
And also, like, why would you pick now of all time? Because what if the sheep is like, I can't do that, actually? And then it's like, oh, I guess I just screwed us. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like, this is an awful risk, but it worked.
Why couldn't you ask me in the timeline where you're getting with Chiemi? Because I still could do shit then.
Well, the sheep can do it, but the sheep also tells him that that's really the last time, and if he does that, then he actually loses his powers.
Yeah, because the sheep's like, basically like, I have to hope I don't get caught, kind of, or something like that. Like,
Yeah, apparently he will be actively hunted by whatever is doing this looping.
Right. So, yeah. So this time he goes back a day earlier, and we start at, is it like 5-9 now? I forget.
The sheep kills him like in an even worse way than before, though.
Well, the first thing that happens is the sheep is like, I don't know, I could probably give you a couple hours. And then Haruki's like, okay, I need a full day and some more stuff. The sheep's like, oh, fuck it, whatever.
He's just a project manager then.
Right. It reminds me of like the guy coming in and like he doesn't know how the fuck the project works, and he's like, well, can we do it like this? And the sheep is like the engineer and has to be like, no, idiot, we can't do it like that.
Yeah, but he does it, ultimately.
Yeah, but he does it. He figures it out. It's an extra
Just
work,
like
but he does it.
Just like an actual project.
If we want to have a lot of security flaws in our time loop, I guess so.
And he's like, if you're consumed by the dream, then I'll save you, so it's okay. Is what he's like. If you get consumed by the dream, it's okay because I'm gonna win and I'm gonna save you. And the sheep's like, fuck off.
So this is the sheep route.
I think the sheep knows that doesn't even make any sense, but he's just tired of hearing it. He's like, okay, fine, whatever, man.
Turbo, it's very funny you say that, because that's actually what I was thinking at one point. But
Well, it kind of is.
And it's actually
It
kind of
seems
true.
that way, yeah.
You know.
Because wink, wink. Yeah. So yeah, sheep sends us back.
Oh, yeah, and it kills us with a million sheep shits. 100 million sheep
Oh
shits.
yeah, we drown in sheep turds. That's not like a cute little slow beef joke like usual when I joke about sheep turds. This is for real.
As he does.
That's my brand.
Yeah. So we go back to May 10 and we wake up in a strange inn that doesn't get any explanation here.
Yeah, I thought that there would be some sort of relevance to us being there or talking to who we were talking to, but there's not.
One of the short stories in the post game is about this.
I was getting the impression that Haruaki had just broken up with his girlfriend, Mitsuji, here's her name,
Yeah.
and was like at a brothel or something. But
Yeah, that is also the impression that I got.
I just thought he got a prostitute because that's sort of the kind of guy he is.
The most disappointing prostitute in Japan.
That's not what it is, though. It's an actual inn, and that's like the actual person who works at the inn. She's not a prostitute. You'll have to read the post-game short story about that.
yeah, I'm sure it's probably one of those things where they're like dancing around like the real thing and they make it sound like it, you know. But anyway, that's my guess. That's my only prediction. But anyhow, so yeah, sheep. Sheep sends us back. It's 5-9, right? And we're there in the.
It's May 10.
We're only there briefly.
It's May 10. Once again, I know this because it's my birthday, so I will always remember it.
Oh, happy. All right, we'll get you a present. Jesus. Okay. 5-10, everybody. Remember, because it's 5 doubled. That's how I remember Oren's birthday. Anyway, sorry.
So Haruaki arrives again at the Fresh Marquet.
Yeah, he does some preparations. He makes a list, and then he just drives all day directly there, like without stopping. Even though it took him like 2 days in the original timeline. And yeah, he gets to the convenience store and enters it, and immediately calls out the clerk and tells her that she's the sheep.
Gotcha. And we finally get to see her, I think, right? Is this the first time we've seen her?
Well, she's always had the cap over her eyes.
Yeah. She had a shadow over her eyes, and now she doesn't.
Yeah.
Gotcha, yeah.
Because somehow, if you saw the eyes beforehand, you would have known that she's a sheep.
yeah, no, it was good. They had to keep the reveal, right?
Yeah.
We still don't learn her name at this point, so...
Or who she is.
It's weird that she has her name written right across her iris, but...
She's had a name tag that says Mitsuji on it this whole time, and we just haven't noticed.
Yeah, but even now, and in the previous scene when he was talking to sheep, they have like this kind of conversation style, like as if they know each other already.
Yeah, really familiar. There's past here. And like that's not we'll reveal more, but like in the moment you can feel it that there's something going on.
I honestly at this point was just like, that's a sheep, and he's just fucking with him. And yeah,
Right.
here's my list of magic things that you get from the back.
Yeah, and since the convenience store is part of the dream world, I think then the convenience store has just whatever Haruaki needs.
Yeah, that's why everything's in the back.
And then the
Yeah.
sheep
Right.
complains about how much it costs. And I'm like, what?
Well, dreams cost money, baby. That's what they tell you.
Well, they also say that she works for some kind of an organization. So maybe there is a cost to having things brought into the dream.
Like a budget of like dream warriors.
She has to feel an expense report after everything's over.
This is the worst Inception I've ever seen.
Budget inception.
Last fiscal dream, we did not account for this.
Yeah, Inception with bureaucracy.
Oh, God.
Dream accounting must be very hard because the numbers keep changing on the paper.
Yeah, the numbers, like sometimes you have to do accounting with no numbers, like they're just made up things.
So he takes his gear, he gets there, and so he heads. He goes the rough way, I guess, and arrives at the Saranaga River. It's still a full day before Chami will be there.
Yeah, he leaves his motorcycle at the junction and then just walks the entire way.
So he's got all his gear, and he heads down the river and has to like climb around because it's like the river itself is in this big like gorge, and he wants to like climb up.
He immediately gets injured.
Yeah, a little bit of realism, little realism thrown in there. He can't do it completely perfectly.
Well, I kind of like that it's set up where the message is, okay, this is the final loop. I can't really go back and change things. And when he cuts his hand, he has that moment of thinking like, well, I can just go back and make it so I didn't do that. And then he has to be like, oh, wait, no, I can't.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, I think I would do. You know, I would make that mistake and be like, oh, damn it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just like a minor inconvenience and be like, time to kill myself. Oh, wait, shit.
And then, like, when he comes back to the monster again, the sheep's like, what the hell? And he's like, I cut my hand. I'm really sorry. I swear to God, this is the last time.
Can we just do this one more time? Just one more time. This is going to be so cool if we get it right.
Guys, suicide is a hard habit to break.
And it's serious now. We know when he hurts his hand, his hand's hurt now. It's going to be hurt after this is over. So he he goes to the hanging tree and rappels down the side of the cliff.
Yeah, the way I kind of read it is like he rappels down it and there's like a hidden like hole in there, and he gets in there and like starts digging through it.
You know, so he figures out that the way they were hanging people is really strange, because why won't you just hang them the usual way? Why do you have to tie a rope to the tree and then a rope to them and then push them down the cliff? So he puts that together with the way they pray, where they have their hands in the air, and he figures out that that's like a relic of the way people used to go down the cliff to pray to a god that lives there. So he figured out that there must be some kind of cave or a small temple somewhere down the cliff. And he finds it.
Yeah. And he doesn't know how to rappel either. He learns how to rappel as he's rappelling down the side of a cliff.
Which I guess, you know.
With injured hands. So that was something.
No time like the present.
So basically he finds a little cave with a door and a little like toddy that Shinto gate next to it.
But it's all full of dirt. Like the tunnel's been filled in, so he has to excavate it.
Yeah, well, right now he just finds it, and then he makes sure that that he has a way to get up there, and goes to sleep because he's very tired in the middle of the night.
Right.
And then in the morning he starts going up there, and it's full of rocks, of stones, and he has to clear all of them out. So he starts doing that, and it's very hard work, and he almost immediately thinks that like he doesn't have what it takes to do it, but he still does. In the middle of the morning, also Mako comes in.
Yeah, and so we see Mako just sort of wandering along the Saranaga.
And this is another time where Haruaki goes, shit, I forgot about this.
So he's like friends with Mako now. Like he finds her instead of Rikako, so he intercepts her and is like, hey, I'm, and she's like, she says something like he ends up saying that like he's not, she's like, are you a wolf? And he's like, I'm not the wolf that you're afraid of, which is not answering the question.
It's like, no.
You're looking for no, right?
Yeah. She's running away from wolves, but then she's looking for doggies. It's something she says.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to tell her that he's not a wolf because of things that are going to happen later. So he tells her just that he's a good wolf. And he gives her food, which makes her happy. And
we have a great artwork for it, too.
Yeah, it's
she's
really
just
cute.
taking a big old bite of a sandwich.
she eats all his food.
This is where I thought that I was thinking that Mako is probably a child that was being human trafficked to the Mikuruma, because she was like looking out for wolves, but also dogs and that kind of stuff. And they have dogs. So then Haruaki like has a whole moment where he's like, oh, so am I going to be a father someday or whatever? And it's like, dude, it's not the time. It's not the time. Not right now, please.
You remember like 15 minutes ago when you were hitting on a 16-year-old? So maybe not the time to think about stuff like that. But
Maybe you got a way to go.
I also just want to revisit that, like, he completely forgot about Mako until she shows up. And I was just like, what is your big plan that you had that you completely forgot about all these minor things?
It'll be fine. It'll work. Trust me.
I'll rescue you from the dream, sheep. How? Sure.
And then after I fix global warming, I'll come back to the sheep and
also, there's like a dozen people he needs to keep track of, and he forgot one. Like, how do you forget a whole damn person?
Yeah, there's not that many of them. So then we get to the part where Chiemi appears to saw off her shotgun.
No, she just appears to. It's the middle of the day. It's morning. Apparently, she found Meiko and not Rikako at all. She always went down to the river and found Meiko.
Yeah.
So she's there, and at first she's ready to kill Haruaki because she's not remembering everything yet. She thinks she's still in the killing him phase.
Which, to be fair, it's a hard habit to break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gets her to remember. And he says that this is the final loop. Like, this is it. And she like, doesn't believe him at first. And he's not going to tell her his whole plan. But he gives her some bullets, and he says, shoot God with this. You will know when the time comes. And he won't tell her anything else, and because of what he plans to do, because he thinks that her religious beliefs will stop her from being able to go along with his plan if he tells her anything else.
Wait, can I just actually, because he said it way more badass, which was use the shell to kill God, which I have to say is pretty great.
And then a sweet ass guitar riff played.
It's no attack and dethrone, but it's pretty good.
Also, did we ever say what his outline and the goals were?
We don't know.
No.
Like at this point.
I mean, he keeps saying like he needs to stop the loop, stop the dreaming, and stop.
He says that the first thing he needs to do is to stop the feast.
The feast, to stop people from killing each other.
The second thing he needs to do is stop the dream and the mastermind. And the third thing he needs to do is stop the Fujiyoshi situation.
Yeah.
The head families.
Which you can tell, like, narratively is not like the right progression, you know? Like you'd think like, but anyway, whatever. So
Arson, murder, and jaywalking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he spends the rest of the day digging. He digs until nighttime.
He lets Chiemi take Meiko. And he goes back to the cave and continue evacuating it.
Yeah. See, after he gets all those stones out, there's just sand underneath there, and he knows there's something in the sand, so he's digging through it.
Until he finds a skull.
Yeah. And he says, like, oh, this is you, Okami-sama. He finds 2 more skulls.
He notes how smooth the skulls are because they were buried in sand.
Kind of an odd observation, but sure.
So these must have been the human sacrifices from the last time there were human sacrifices.
Yeah, we're going to learn all of that when he tells it in great detail.
That's true. He will tell us exactly what happened.
When he looks to the camera and tells us.
Yeah.
So he also finds a wolf mask in there.
A badass wolf mask.
Yeah, like an old one that's cooler than the ones that the wolves use.
It looks like the ones the wolves had, but like, yeah, basically it's just a lot cooler.
And he finds Chiemi and Meiko and tells Chiemi to gather everyone.
Yeah, he waits until evening, until just before the mists come in. And he goes to the hanging tree and tells Chiemi to bring everyone there.
So now everyone's here.
He also tells Meiko to play along with him.
Yeah.
and that's really cute, actually.
So he reveals himself to the village dressed in the wolf mask, and he introduces himself as Yomatsu Okami. And he tells a whole story about what happened, what really happened, and why they have to stop the feast and not participate in it. And he tells like sort of a potential real version of events based off of the historical evidence that he's found so far. And but he also incorporates the religious beliefs and the fact that Shinai, like he treats it like Shinai is a real entity.
Well, it is a real entity in this. All the gods in this thing are kind of
real.
Yeah, like this games universe is where like gods they take the power from belief, but they're also kind of real. It's weird. It's weird.
It's kind of like a situation where like myths and legends have a kind of power. And in here it's like it's a little more supernatural, I guess.
It reminds me a lot of like the Sandman universe, you know, from Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, American Gods too.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, American Gods. Yeah.
You have more power, the more people believe in you.
Yeah, which means like it shifts to like technology technology is the new god because of belief.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
So his story, like to make it short, is that there was an original god in this area. That's Mujina. That's the
badger.
The badger.
badger. Yeah. Who was like kind of a mischievous god. So whenever people came to the area, he sent wolves after them and made life difficult. But people did want to settle there, so they did what people did back then and sent human sacrifices. And the way it worked is that the human sacrifices turned into deities themselves and pushed the old god away. And these are the Okami-sama.
It's a mother, father, and a child.
Yeah, they were a family of human sacrifices.
So he claims to be the father and Mako is the child and the mom is busy.
And he talks
Yeah.
about how, like, they were happy to be sacrifices or something like that. And he's like, they probably weren't really happy about
No.
it. That's probably not what happened.
It was like one of those things that, like, you know, as you're going back into the actual historical real narrative of religion, you're like, you know, oh, people have believed for years that people sacrifice themselves willingly. It's like, absolutely
Yeah.
not.
But again, it plays the line where, like, this really happened in history, there were human sacrifices, but also the human sacrifices actually became deities that had power because people believed in them, which means they had power.
So there was an upside to the human sacrifice in this world.
Yeah, well, the wolf attack stops. The real wolf.
They became saints, you know?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And then centuries later, when because the way the area grew, I mean, there were always people down there in Yasumizu who were supposed to keep that place, this holy place where the human sacrifice took place, and keep it safe. But because they were down the hill and the actual village was up the hill, there was a power situation happening there, and which eventually caused the rebellion from Yasumizu, where they killed a bunch of people. And that's where the people of Fujiyoshi decided to change the religion to what it is today, to oppress the people of Yasumizu. So they turned the Okami-sama into Shinai with the kanji trick, which is really stupid.
Those kanji tricks.
And they created the entire legend about the guardians and the feast and everything.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but theoretically, around the time they would have pulled this trick, why would anyone in the village have been literate? So why would the kanji changing have any impact?
That's a great point.
Look, it's just neat, okay?
It was someone in the Nosado who was like, "Hey, check out what I can do."
No, here's what it is, right? Because, like, the person who's literate and thinks they're really smart does this whole trick, and then they're all literate, so he's like, well, you just have to trust me.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way the kanji works. They're like, oh.
Yeah. That's why it was so effective. Because reading was such a new thing for them that they thought that was like a cool trick, super cool trick. Like, wow.
Look how I can encode this.
Because he's just moving lines around. It's literally the stick bug thing.
Oh no! All the people of Fujiyoshi got stick bugged.
Yeah.
I can't believe this.
I don't know what this is.
But yeah, but that's basically it. So he says that all these years Shinai-sama was fake. The real Okami god is a good god, and they came back and they don't want them to do the feast anymore. And in fact, they want to be killed.
And then he gives everybody an important talk about themselves.
Yeah.
It's very Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. But it proves his power because he knows everybody's name, he knows their business, their secrets and stuff, and they're in shock that he knows this information.
And he tells them exactly what they will need, what they want to hear. Every one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his plan is to get killed by Chiemi and give the power back to Mujina as the local god, to be the local god again.
Mm-hmm.
And because everyone is very deeply ingrained in their religion in here, and their belief structure is so heavy, they buy into it basically with a little bit of guidance. Like Tai was like, I want to believe you, and then basically goes into that Wizard of Oz bullshit to convince her.
What I like is everybody gets a Wizard of Oz speech, except for the old man who he just tells to go to the main. You come here.
Plaza, you go to the plaza.
You meet me in the plaza. We'll skip you for now.
I will give you a Wizard of Oz speech later, I swear.
When Haru says thank you to Haruaki, she says his name. She says thank you, Haruaki.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple looping.
Well, the god definitely knows.
Well, she's God. The God knows, but
Yeah.
but Haru says it not in God's voice, but in her own voice,
In her own, yeah.
Yeah.
which means that they're basically the same person.
Yeah, because if the god can retain memories through the loop, then she's basically looping, and so is.
They share the same hippocampus.
Yeah, exactly. And he says, when everything is over, take everything you take everything with you and run to the Saranaga, and there my wife will be ready to help you escape. Yeah, except the old man, bitch, stay in the plaza.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then he asks Chiemi to shoot him.
And Chiemi is really freaked out at the beginning. She doesn't really want to do it. But then she does. And Haruaki fakes his death by doing a bungee jump.
Yes, and the bullets were fake.
With Meiko.
With Mako, yeah. And he jumps off the cliff and pretends to die, and instead ends up on that little outcropping.
Yeah, it's very like, Haruaki is Triple X. Like, jumps off, skydives, and gets into a cave.
And Mako's just cheering as it happens.
Of course, this is the idea he came up with.
He turns around with two guns, shoots the old man on the way down.
Also, when they land, like, Mako's like, wow, that was badass. And Haruaki's like, yeah, I can't believe it worked.
And then the tree explodes.
I just risked your life too for no reason.
So we've solved, apparently, solution number 1, stopping Yasumizu from killing each other. The people are not going to participate in anything.
Not quite. There's a side mission to the first mission that we haven't done yet, which is the old man.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that'll be in a minute. But he does, like, he's like, yeah, I did it. Good job, me.
All the people we care about survive.
Yes.
And he's altered the belief system. Like, they have sort of... Part of what made everything possible was their, this inescapable belief by so many of them that, like, this was the work of deities. This was, the paranormal. This was, God touching their lives. So there was no escape. There was nothing they could do. They were forced into this killing game because of that. And he's altered that belief system. So that's, it's going to end no matter what happens next.
Yeah, he's put the power back in their hands.
So then he gives Mako a bunch of candy and tells her to wait for 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
Which is the best way to treat children.
Yeah, a kid hopped up on sugar is going to be very patient.
We tell her to hide behind a rock for 2 or 3 hours.
Great. Good plan.
Great father.
Yeah, Haruaki's like, maybe I can be a dad.
I'll just give my kid a big bag of candy and stick him in a river behind a rock.
After I bungee jump with them. Yeah, this is great.
So then
he goes and meets the ship at the river. And now we find out that the ship is his ex-girlfriend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mitsuji, which if you know that in Japanese a ship is Hitsuji. And
Oh,
she's called
come on.
Mitsuji. Then you could have figured it out earlier.
Well, I figured it out.
So then there's like this like reveal that they like he acted like he didn't know her, and like I guess like she thought he was just trying to like pull something because
so, yeah, it's great. So the first thing in the revelation mode is that you go to that scene at the convenience store at the beginning, and you get to see their thoughts. And they recognize each other immediately, but they play this like strange game of chicken about who's going to tell the other one first, and they never do.
They're both just like, what's the other one pulling?
Yeah, exactly. And that's also why he's so afraid of her.
I'm glad they broke up.
That's also why he's so afraid of her in the beginning. Which is kind of weird because he was basically in an abusive relationship. She was a very abusive girlfriend.
An abusive relationship.
This is so much.
Oh, put that one in the title.
And then he's like, can I ask you what your whole deal is, like, as a sheep? And she's like, no, you can't. And he's like, oh, does this mean you, like, still care about me or something? And it's like, no.
No, I've killed you twice, literally.
Remember when I covered you in sheep shit? Like,
Well, that just means you love me.
This is the one part that I still just, like, I still don't buy it. I feel like this is too much of a leap. Like, I just don't. This part feels like such a reach.
Well, he asks her if this is this entire thing, that the way they met again over here, if it's just coincidence. And she tells him no, she thinks it's fate because they knew each other, they met again.
But if I walk into a convenience store in the middle of the night, in the middle of no place, and my ex, who I'm apparently fleeing my life to get away from, is working the counter, and she tells me to go down a desolate country road. Guess what thing I am not doing?
Like the woman who just tried to like physically hurt him, and that he even said like that she like threw stuff at him and stuff you know, without the side stories, so we can assume that it was abusive.
In the revelation mode, even one of his thoughts is, did she follow me here? Like, did she like trail me?
But so here's what I don't get: is she actually his ex, or in like this situation? In this situation, because she's also the sheep, though, right?
She is also supernatural.
Yeah.
So then,
and works for an organization.
She's his ex-girlfriend. She also works for a secret organization, can control dreams. Yes, that's what's going on here.
She's like Suicide Squad, basically. But yeah.
Also, I don't know if you noticed or not, but apparently she doesn't know his real name because she also calls him Haruaki.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No one knows his real name. Also, I feel like I can understand how she might have been moved to like punch him in the face or whatever if he's never told her his real fucking name. I mean, Haruki's also a piece of shit, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's not the only reason. Like, you know, he's a punchable dude.
Match made in heaven. So he says like, my next thing is to take out the master of the loop.
Yeah, he wants her to take the villagers away on some boats. Yeah, he asked her to prepare some boats and take them away to some hotel or something. And
she had those in the backyard, in the back room. So,
yeah.
And this is the point where, you know, he's like, okay, we got to take out the master of the loop, and we're thinking like, well, who was missing from the whole scene we just had where we told everyone to believe in themselves? Oh, it's Rikako. Rikako wasn't there.
Yeah, but first he has to deal with the old man at the plaza before he goes to Rikako.
Yes.
Yeah, just in case you thought it was maybe the old man, it's not.
Yeah. This is also like, this is what me and Oren were talking about last time when we were like, we kind of already figured it out, because also like at this point, it's like, oh, it's Rikako. Rikako's not there. Rikako's in the UI.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, but the scene with the old man is basically Araki says to him, I'm not going to kill you if you're just going to go away and never come back. But then the old man tries to pull up a knife and then gets himself killed.
Yeah, he slips and then the knife goes through himself. And Haraki's like, haha, karma.
Because he's 95.
The grass was tied to trip him. And he trips, like something was already set up to trip him, and then he falls in it and it lands face first onto his own dagger and impales himself and dies. But like that I assume that is answered in the extra stories.
Yeah, it is. It's not that important. Do you want me to tell you?
Yes, tell me.
Sure.
It's Meiko was playing in the grass before that, and she tied.
So it was just happenstance. I was wondering if it was intentional or not. That's funny.
It wasn't. She was just playing in the grass.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you're 95 and you lunge anywhere, bad things are going to happen.
Yeah, honestly. All right, now time to confront Rikako. She's been waiting for us. He's like, you know, who else had control over the realm of dreams if not the Uematsu? And she arrives. Where is she? Is she in her house or somewhere else?
That's why this game's been so horny.
Yeah.
She's at the temple, the hall where they do the feasts.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, I caught the sheep.
Well, she didn't catch the sheep. She just made the sheep powerless to do any more dream manipulation.
And Haraki's theory about what's going on is that the spider is an outsider, someone who showed up during the creation of the faith with a miracle of some kind, so they forced it in.
Yeah, there's a whole lot here about Japanese mythology that, once again, I'm not sure if people who aren't already familiar with it got exactly what he's talking about.
Absolutely not. This thing
not even close.
was Greek to me.
The only thing that I kind of got out of it is that for somebody that has like a healing role and can actually do like miracles and healing work, everybody seemed to dislike her and seemed to dislike the Uematsu family heads. And it's kind of goes to the conclusion that, well, maybe they are like an outsider, or they were somebody that just didn't belong there and so kind of just shoehorned their way in.
Mm-hmm. But it's in Neo. I gotta mention it. Joroguma and then the Tsuchigumo thing, that like it's not like a god but like a yokai thing. It's mentioned very briefly. That's all I had. I just had to interject it. Anyway, I knew a thing. That was my point.
So yeah, it figures out that spiders aren't gods in Shinto, so when they created a religion and pulled the guardians in, why did they choose a spider? That made no sense. So the spider had to come from somewhere else. And it figures out that that's the Tsuchigumo that we talked about briefly in the previous episode. That the gods that took over Japan drove away when they took over Japan, which made the Tsuchigumo into a god of grudges, whose only wish is to like destroy Japan, destroy the Yamato.
Hence the monster destroying the country.
Cool.
Which we all thought.
Yeah.
Also, this is like weirdly not in theme with the rest of the threats in this, because it's like this is like an existing mythology that like now it's like, oh, you know, this part of ancient mythology is here and is going to come back and is real and is a legitimate threat to all of us. And I feel like it doesn't quite mesh with the whole theme of like, you know, religion and gods have power because of the people that enact their beliefs. It isn't not related to that, but it feels like a little bit separate.
It's like an uncanny valley of the mythology. Like something just feels off about it.
Yeah. Did you get why Rikako needed everyone dead? Because that part, the specific details about exactly how this works, I think the translation here did a very poor job of explaining.
Yeah, so I actually was very confused afterwards. I think I even messaged you like after I finished the story. I was like, wait, so does the time loop stop when all of Rikako's quote-unquote children have died, or is that what summons the stuff, or yeah?
This is completely unclear in the way it was translated. I think what happened here was that the Uematsu family, or their ancestors, were followers of the Tsuchigumo, of the gods. And they had the Tsuchigumo in their heads, basically. And it gave them the powers to take in corruption, which would have revived the Tsuchigumo once they took in enough corruption. But the Uematsu family didn't want that. They just wanted power. So they tried to trick the Tsuchigumo by, after taking in corruption, they spilled the blood so the corruption wouldn't stay in. So they could have the power of healing people, but they didn't have to keep the corruption in, and the Tsuchigumo wouldn't get resurrected. But the Tsuchigumo figured that out. So in order to overcome this, whenever they took in the corruption, he also left something in the other person. That's the children that she's talking about.
Spider eggs.
Yeah. And Rikako is the first Uematsu who actually wants the revival of the Tsuchigumo, because she's crazy. And the way to get the Tsuchigumo revived is to basically kill everyone who had the Tsuchigumo's children implanted in them.
Which was everyone she made love to.
Yeah.
Which was everyone.
Which is everyone in the village. So she had to create a situation where she puts everyone in the same place, and there's everyone killed one another, and she has to survive at the end. It's not a very good plan, though, because she just put everyone in a loop that didn't go anywhere until someone else came in.
Yeah, she needed to keep changing the loop, and I'm not even really sure after this of like how the loop resets, because I thought it was when she dies, but then I think there are actual timelines when she dies and we're still playing as Haruaki. And
no, so it's very quickly after she dies. So there are 2 times where she dies and we see her body. One time Haruaki talks about it's when he comes back to the village and she's
hanging from the ceiling. Yeah.
And he says that he dies very quickly after that. The other time is when she's hanged at the feast, and then, like, minutes later, he's poisoned in the dining hall. So it's also very quickly after her death.
oh, okay, all right. So then it is just her death that does it.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that she put these people in this situation where she could potentially win, but never did, because everyone in the village hates her so much that she would either die or get hung in the feast every single time.
Exactly.
Or, yeah. So she's not good at werewolf is the problem.
No.
So she needed Haruaki to come in. Okay, got it.
Yeah. She needs him specifically so that everyone else in the village dies who was born in the village, except for her.
And now we have the creepy part where the way she took everyone's corruption is by fucking everyone in the village.
Yeah.
And they say, like, oh, well, for some of them it was like a dream. It was like a spiritual thing. It wasn't like a literal thing, but it's ambiguous.
Well, I think at one point Haruaki's like, they probably just don't remember because it really did happen.
And a lot of them were pretty young.
Yeah, a lot of them were young. It's just a lot.
Let's just leave it at it's metaphorical, and no.
I forget what the outbreak was. Polio or something?
Cholera.
Cholera, yeah. So that was a lot of time when she did. I think she said, or Nosato was around that time.
Yeah.
So that's why he was coy about it.
Yeah, that's why Nosato has a crush on her, because she took his virginity, basically.
Yeah, and he's one of the few that remembers it. Like, he actually remembers having sex with her, and that's why he's been obsessed with her since then.
Yikes! 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 Yikes!
Yeah, a lot of yikes.
I like that Haruaki asks about the old man, and she says that's the one she doesn't want to remember.
It's also heavily implied it's done by force, too, which is just, we don't need to get down this route at all.
Yeah.
This was such a left turn, too, because there's so much violence in this game, but none of it is sexual. And, like, it was all of a sudden, it's like, oh, here's a bunch of, like, all this sexual violence also happened. And I just, like, wasn't ready for it. I did not think this was this type of game.
Yeah, and, like, in the violence that has happened in the game, the premeditated parts are never, like, explicitly shown or even mentioned too much. It's always shown of, like, a moment of someone going crazy or something like that. And so this is a time where it's explicitly premeditated and a whole lot of issues with it.
And none of these other fucking murderers commit any sexual violence on any, like, there's no, like, oh, you know, like, who cares what I do with this body, like, type of stuff that you might expect in a game that has, you know, this type of content in it. So it's really out of left field. It was really like, ew, this is really bad and gross and I hate it. Why is this happening?
There's also a thing in here where they talk about Chiemi, and apparently she took in Chiemi's corruption and Chiemi doesn't even remember it, which is why she still thinks that she's, like, corrupted.
Most of them don't remember.
So let me tell you all about a magic trick called headcanon, where I just pretend none of that happened and made my own thing up.
Love it.
You know. Yes. No, it's pretty
I mean,
good.
she says that with Kaori it was during childbirth.
Yeah, which really
she
confirms that it was like sexual contact. Yeah. Why?
And that was a 2-for-1 special.
Yeah, it was a 2-for-1. God damn it.
Why?
Got a lot of good contenders this time.
Why? Like, it almost left it open to be like a spiritual thing that happened, and then there's like also like, oh, but then it was also a physical thing that happened. Like, what?
Well, I mean, Aaron, you talked a little bit before about like how there is a very physical aspect to parts of Shintoism.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, this has to be accurate to Shintoism. If there is one thing about Raging Loop that I would have been upset about.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely didn't need to be in there, but
yeah, I don't think they needed to have that in here. It was a little too much. It's impactful though.
It sure is. It's.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no precedent.
yeah, I mean, I feel like they needed some. I feel like they need to establish her as a villain other than their huge tokusatsu monster.
Yeah, I think that they just wanted to make Rikako as disturbing as possible.
Well, you know, they had this one. I gotta say, this one artwork they had for her was really like disturbing, in my opinion. And it's just her face, you know, where she's like, her eyes are like wide open, and her facial expression, and it was almost like jump scary. Because again, she doesn't look like a monster or anything, but it looks like a disturbing face. You know what? Good enough. Leave it there. It's okay.
Yeah,
you know
that
what I
was
mean?
enough.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's a game of fucking werewolf at the end of the day. Like, I don't care if you like cut a little corner and just like, all right, trust me, she's the bad guy. You know what I mean? Like
It was just very. It was so strange because we also we've like come to know so much about these characters and like their lives and stuff like that, and then she's just like, also I fucked all of them, and you're just like,
Yeah.
what? Like you can't even wrap your head around it.
And then goes on in detail to outline just how they did it.
Like what?
All these people would be virgins if not for me.
To be honest, Haruaki asks her specifically about each one of them.
Yeah.
He does.
But he's kind of obsessed.
Because his reaction is like ours. Like, seriously? Like, I don't believe you. Like, is that possible? How is that even possible? I know these people.
I could grant Haruaki if he asks. I think if he asks about like maybe two people tops, you know what I mean? Like, how about Tai? How does that work? And then it's like, you know what? Now I got the gist. It's fine. I don't need to know all. You know,
He's like taking notes. He's got a list. He's like, what? Wait a second. You couldn't have, not the little kid, right?
And then it's just like, all right, let's go down the line.
But,
all right, anyway.
you know, the spider god, you know, she's like, but you know what, Haruaki, I do actually want to fuck you.
Yeah.
I wasn't lying about that, and not just to put my evil spider babies in you, but actually just because I'm into it.
Well, also she's like, I love the person I want to eat, right? So there is a little bit of the twist of the knife there, right? Where it's like, I love you, but I'm going to kill you. You know, that kind of thing. But because I love you.
And also, he was the one that refused.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so that was her plan.
Haraki's like, oh, I'm flattered. But then a bunch of people are here. A bunch of people followed him instead of going off in the boats. It's Chiemi, Haru, Kinosuke, and Mochi. Kinosuke's there because he couldn't leave Rikako behind, and what do you know, they've heard everything and they're here to save Haruaki.
They don't really, though.
Yeah, they don't really have a plan. They're just there.
They don't. They so
come
they
in with
can't-
guns ablazing.
They can't kill Rikako because then the dream will reset.
I do kind of like that Rikako has kind of like no sense of self-preservation, which is why in all the trials she's just really ready to just be hung if things aren't going her way. And even here she's just like, okay, go ahead, kill me. We'll just do this all over again.
Yeah.
You know what I like is like the people come in and probably like one of them was like, what are you guys talking about? And Haruaki was like, nothing. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Evil.
It kind of interrupts whatever weird stuff he was going to ask. So everyone's like, we'll save you, Haruaki. And he's like, well, actually, I'm kind of thinking of going with her, actually. I'm kind of into it. And everyone's like, what?
Oh no, betrayal.
Because he made a deal. He made a deal with her back in that other loop that if they both survive, then they could both make one request of each other.
Yeah, they made a divine promise, so it has to be done.
And as the game emphasizes 17 times, they made a deal while using their full names.
Most of the time.
It said Rikako can make a wish of Haruaki, and he can make a wish of Rikako. He specifically says that
I can make a wish to Rikako.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And so...
Gotcha!
Boy, that would be fucked up if she lied about her name too.
Yeah, that would be all bad. She requests that he join her forever, I think they're just gonna fuck forever, and then she's gonna kill him. Whatever.
Yeah, they have this bit about making Nosato the bed that they're going to fuck on top of.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. You're right. Shit.
What a line. What a line, folks.
So I didn't catch on to Haraki not being his real name until it emphasized that a couple times, and so he has a sort of a cool line if you didn't catch on to that until now, where he goes, "Boy, that must really suck if Haraki actually existed."
Time for the big Haraki reveal. Haraki isn't his real name, so he is not bound by the promise.
But he can make a promise to her. But before he has a chance to, she just pulls out a knife and tries to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Right.
But suddenly, the lights go out, and when they come back on, Rikiko's on the floor, and she's been disarmed, and they tie her up. And I assume this is another thing that is answered in the side stories, extra stories.
She's down, and she also claims that the spider is gone. She doesn't have it anymore in her head. Somehow. We don't get to learn how and why and what happened.
Spider's like, I can't fuck. All right, I'm out.
I'm outie. And they tie her up.
What if she's just lying and they all buy it? It's like, hey, I'm cured. My God, just gonna let me go.
Oh, you got me.
Oh
no.
And after all of this, after everything that they've just heard and seen, Kinosuke is still into it. He is like, she was just driven to do this because everyone was cruel to her. And like, she has a perfectly good reason for being this way, because everyone was horrible to her whole life. She was alone. So why don't you all have a little compassion? And he still wants to get with her.
He's like, yeah, I'm kind of a monster fucker, so.
Yeah, turns out I'm into it still. You if you're down.
Yo, you want to play some Monfuck?
Look, you discover your own kinks in the weirdest times, and.
But also, the moment she has the power taken away from her, she starts acting like really sulky and like a 10-year-old who got a toy taken away or something.
Yeah.
You're such a dummy.
Kind of like the Rikiko we had in the tutorial.
Like this powerless, weak little,
Annoying child. So also the badger, the real mountain god, says that she will remove the spider's seeds of corruption from the people now that she has her power back. So
Haraki, for all the details that he asked about the other part, is like, okay, sounds good. Don't need to ask any other questions.
Yeah, I know, right? And like, it's just like, for as dark as this game got, these are really like cheap explanations where it's just like, but magic happened and everything's happy, Like, all right. I don't know.
You get to know what happened in the darkness in the post-game material.
I hear you.
It's basically Clue.
Yeah. This really feels like, let's wrap it up, people. But anyway,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So cool, I guess.
Speaking of let's wrap it up, people, the third act.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
That's the worst one.
So we've defeated the spider.
This is a scene out of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not even that. I basically expect Yakety Sax to be playing in the background.
Oh.
So it's expected that they weren't going to let the feast just, go away. So they start sending the little ninja guys in the wolf outfits to try and get the feast, to kick the superstition back up and get the feast going again. But of course, they can't fight because they're not supernatural at all. And Haraki and Chiemi and Yudai, they all beat up.
Yeah, Yudai shows up and just starts whooping ass.
Yeah, finally.
And then Mamita shows up and starts whooping ass.
Yeah, everyone except Haraki is good at fighting.
Yeah, it's just a big fight scene.
It's probably one of my favorite CGs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like they appear one at a time as they join the battle. It's very good. That's how they're going to announce them for Smash too. So they beat up a bunch of wolf nerds, a bunch of young men volunteers from Kami Fujiyoshi, and finally they back off and they're like, oh, we want to talk. And there's three figures that like seem to be in charge.
Especially the three elder wolves, who I guess were doing the same thing back when you were a wolf, yeah.
Yeah, and they were talking in the ye old Japanese.
Which is just so weird. It does not work at all, especially in this scene.
No. Yeah, not at all.
Haruaki goes up to them and is like, look, Shinai is dead, the old god is back, and the senior-most wolf asks him if he has what it takes to end this conspiracy, and Haruaki puts on the old wolf mask and stares down the people in their new wolf masks, and he basically has to make up a new story on the spot about what happened. He basically has to come up with a religious parable, and so he does on the spot, and he's like, oh, I'm bad at improv, which is funny because he's a writer.
But that's enough to convince the elders.
I mean, as dumb as this is, I think it's kind of funny because it's like, okay, I have to take down this huge organization that can put on this whole seemingly supernatural killing game feast. They're gonna stay in power. He can't bring them out of power, so he has to just kind of convince them. This like, okay, here's the new bullshit story that lets you stay in power
through Aesop's rap battle.
It's a rap battle. They're like, can you stop us with your sick poem?
Yeah.
Your sick poem.
How many snaps can you get?
So I was kind of thinking maybe they were trying for like a meta game of werewolf, like maybe where you have to kind of convince, that kind of thing. But I don't know. It's just sort of...
They do get kind of convinced because after Haruaki tells his story, the guy's like, he's like, yeah, I kind of was never into this anyways. The current head's kind of a shit.
Yeah, like there's something in the background being like, I told you this would never work.
Yeah, they drop the old accents immediately.
And then he's just like, all right, don't worry about it, dude. I'll take care of it. Look in the newspaper tomorrow or next week or something like that.
And also the reporters are like, if you don't do this, then we are reporters and we will report on this.
We'll do our jobs, but only if you fuck up.
Yeah.
That's that's the thing about this game. Like, the tonal shift is insane because it's like Rikaku's like, I'm gonna fuck all of you and lay my eggs in you, and then it's like, well, boss, I never that voice is no good, Like,
it's so wild.
I told you this religion was no good. Like, hey,
Come here, you knucklehead.
It should have been the other order. Like, he should have done the act and then talked to the Miguruma and then finally confronted Rikako.
I think this entire third part with the Miguruma shouldn't be here at all. I don't know how you get rid of it, but it just doesn't work.
Also, one of the guys is Chiami's grandfather.
I was just gonna say, why not use the old man and whatever like leverage he held over them? Why you wouldn't use that to get rid of him? It is beyond me, because I think why not? Just threaten them with some kind of exposure, and they'd be like, okay. Instead of being like, I can convince you through the power of my words.
Yeah, instead they just killed him.
I'm the old man's friend from Tokyo, and I have the dossier.
Yeah.
It's just the stakes are all over the place. Like, this is a fucking murder game where you have people killing each other, like, in their own family and stuff, and it's just like, yeah, you're right, this all stinks. I don't know. It's like... Yeah.
It's been going on for like 500 years. Like, I remember all those people we slaughtered over freaking half a millennia?
We've convinced others to murder each other, but can you tell us a nice enough bedtime story?
Yeah, it's like, I made a better bullshit story, so now you have to do what I say.
We can't murder him anymore. This story's just too good.
Or the story doesn't make sense.
It's almost like they're like, we don't want to do this anymore. Like, we have already conceded, but we need to concede, spiritually concede, or formally concede. With you have to tell us how we're going to change the story of our religion to accommodate this thing that is happening, and we can't stop it from happening.
Right. They can't reinstate the feast, but they still want to be in power. So they need a new tool, basically.
Yeah. God is real, and it's in a logical narrative. That's all. That's the only way God exists.
Mm-hmm. So then they say goodbye to the Miguruma and the wolf volunteers from Kamifujiyoshi, and on the way back, Haruaki is talking to Mamiya, and she's like, "Oh, I'm a big fan of yours," because he's finally learned enough about her writing and all the loops to know.
he apparently he was actually a big fan of her from the very beginning. He just didn't want to tell her. Because one other thing you learn in the post-game stuff is that Taduraki is a big fan of weird food.
Oh.
He really likes weird food. So he was a big fan of her blog or whatever from before the game.
Oh my gosh.
He's like, oh my god, what do you think if Andrew Zimmern shows up in this game? Oh my god!
Wow. So that's all missions clear. It's time to gather everyone and leave along the Saranaga. He goes back to look for Mako at the rock. He left her behind with a bunch of candy, and there's nothing there. There's just wrappers and a thank you note, but she's gone. And he's like, you know what? I'm sure she'll be fine. She's just a 4-year-old wandering around by herself on a river. I'm sure she'll get where she's supposed to be.
This is how it was meant to be. There was no other way to get around this.
Damn, I am such a good dad.
Oh, the end. And Mitsuji is waiting for them. She's got some 4-wheelers. She's gonna take them out of here with some all-terrain vehicles. And Haruaki says, "Did your sheep come back?" And she says, "Yes." So I don't really know. I feel like the hint sheep works for Mitsuji, but I don't know if they're the same entity.
I think it's saying the word sheep meaning power here.
Yeah, she's got some whatever she can wield over the dream is what came back to her.
So Mitsuji's going to take everybody to stay at a hotel for the night, and Haruki's like, "Wow, you really are a hero of justice." And but he's not going with them. He's going to go back and find his bike and get the fuck out. So he goes and he sleeps next to his bike. He doesn't drive. He's too tired, so he just sleeps on the ground next to his bike till the next day.
I do like how he introduces Chiemi to her. And that's a fun piece of dialogue.
Yeah. He's just like, oh, this is my ex who I have a very complicated relationship with. Oh, here's my other person who's kind of an ex of me as well. Enjoy.
And she's a murderer sometimes.
Yeah, oh yeah. And she's definitely a murderer sometimes.
And they become best friends.
They do.
Because he's such a dick, it could bring anyone together.
I love that. Anyway, he wakes up and the game fucking fakes us out that something bad would happen. He fakes out like, oh, I thought everyone was going to be dead and I was, but he's like, no, but that's not what happened because it's over and there's no such things as werewolves. And he drives away.
Raging loop. But
then he returns to his normal everyday life. So he fucking bails. What a piece of shit. Oh my God. How could you, for your own self, as a purely selfish being, how could you bail? After you went through an experience like that.
But what could he do? Because most of the villagers thinks he's dead, and if he turns up not being dead, then his entire act was for nothing.
That's
also,
true.
He's seen them hundreds of times.
Yeah, wouldn't you get sick of them?
I'm already sick of them.
He never liked any of them. Never liked them.
You could still get with the Badger God.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 2 years. Yeah.
Let's just, yeah.
So he tries to return to his normal everyday life. Does not try to contact Chiemi or anything like that. And sort of leaves her to kind of leaves everybody to kind of figure their shit out without him. But then one day, he's reading the paper, and the headline says, Mayor of Fujiyoshi Village resigns due to corruption scandal, and also a dog breeding place is shut down.
Yeah, they could have been spinning newspapers and it would have been more effective.
Yeah. So apparently the dogs that were in the feast were just rabid dogs that they trained to avoid water.
Yeah.
Well, then they kind of do a little lamp shading because it's like, but then if they were all rabid, then they couldn't some of the animals in the area would have been rabid, and that couldn't fix that, and there'd be problems. And anyway,
Yeah. There's a lot of anyway in this ending.
Mm-hmm. So,
anywho,
he hasn't heard any other updates, even from Mitsuji, but he has.
Yeah, because you fucking ran away from everyone.
Yeah, asshole.
You can't get updates if they can't contact you.
When you are on your bike, giving the middle finger over your shoulder as you're driving away, guess what? You don't get the news.
He also said he blocked her and he's going to unblock her, but he probably forgot.
Absolute garbage trash, man.
That's so great.
So he does know that Nosato is still living with Rikako, and they're living outside the village. They're living outside Kamifujiyoshi. And he writes Haruki an email, I think, that, or maybe a letter, that his older brother became the new mayor, the head of the Nosato family after the mayor resigned. So that's a good sign that things are going to be more normal in Fujiyoshi from now on.
Yeah, the Nosato family, known for being full of normal
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever goes insane at 65.
At least they're the modern kind of corrupted instead of whatever the fuck was happening before.
Mhm.
So life in Yasumizu, I apparently continued on as always.
Sure.
Suddenly
Sure.
Chami shows up, and she's like, "Hey, your house is nicer than the other students that live in this area." And she gets in because there were people leaving his house, and she just like went in as they were leaving. And she's like, "Who are those people that just left?" And he's like, "Editors." And he's a writer, and he's a famous writer, and Haruki Fusaishi is his pen name.
Apparently, he writes every book with a different pen name, and they're all successful.
Great. My question is Haruki Fusaishi, like, if you perform, it's a word for alias anyway, right?
Alibi.
Yeah. So it's not like it's probably not like the Japanese version of naming, like saying that your name is Harry Butts or Mike Hunt, or something like that.
It's a little more complicated than that, but it's still, yeah.
Is it something you'd have figured out, by the way? Like, if you were reading a book by, like, Haruki Fusashi, you'd be like, oh, wait a sec.
You can. You have to read a kanji for Haruaki in a different way, but it's less complicated than the things that with Fujiyoshi and Yasumizu.
Like, it's by Al-I-By.
Yeah.
BYE.
This game really wants us to be impressed by these kanji tricks.
Yep.
So Chami shows up, and she's like, "Look, I went out, I tried to get a job, can't get a job right now. Keep getting rejected. Don't know what to do with myself. So I thought I'd come bother you again." And she basically,
No one's looking for a hitman in these times.
yeah, she just doesn't know the right people. Well, she knows Mitsuji now, and they're best friends.
Yeah, that's how she knew his address. Mitsuji gave her his address.
Oh, there's a lot. There's none of these people are good people, but that's okay. So
Mitsuji gave her his address, but she also told her that it's not a good idea.
great.
She's, yeah.
Okay, so Chami basically like outwits and pressures Haruaki into dating her again, and they ride away on his motorcycle.
They do.
And the credits say there's no such thing as werewolves.
There's really no such thing as werewolves. Doesn't it say something like that?
Yeah, the ending credit song is sung by Chami's voice actress, and it says there is absolutely no such thing as werewolves, and also good speed.
Yeah.
Good speed.
Ba-bum-bum-ba-bum-bum. Whoop!
Apparently, my ending theme song is raising a lot of questions answered by my ending theme song.
That's Raging Loop.
Yeah, I liked it.
No, I did too, actually. I mean, all in all, I liked it.
Yes, I think it is overall it is a good game.
Yeah.
The ending, it ends in a whimper. I don't know. This is a good ending.
It feels like they got near the end and they just kind of had to wrap things up.
I liked the very ending, the part with Chami and them riding off. I thought that was nice.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
the sort of epilogue stuff.
It didn't need the spider god stuff. I feel like that the looping could have been a ritual put on by the Miguruma or something like that. Who knows? It could have been. We didn't need 3 problems. Just 2 would have been good.
I feel like the author had a really good, an idea he really liked based on actual Japanese mythology, and they just pushed it into this game. Because the entire thing with the Tsuchigumo and everything, and how it ties up with Shinto, is clever if you read history and you can come up with this kind of story. But I'm not sure if it fits the rest of this game or not.
It's fun, but yeah, it's not really this game. Maybe not fun is the right word, but you know.
No. Also, there's a way to incorporate that into the game itself, rather than rely on you having outside knowledge to bring into the game. right? You should write that. You should show that within the game in order to get people involved in how this resolution has weight to it.
They did put everything in with the Mamiya info dumps. They told you everything you needed to know. It's just so much information in such a short time that probably if you didn't know about it before, then you just read it and you immediately forget everything you read.
And also the way sort of Mamiya talks in this, it's sort of like she's just hand wavy and saying, just like, well, it could be this, could be anything though. And so you sort of get the idea that it's when you're listening to it that it's not really important. So I sort of like tuned out a lot when Mamiya was talking because
it's pure exposition, and pure exposition isn't engagement. That does not bring the reader in at all. It's more backstory for you to understand.
Well, and I also didn't view it as exposition. I viewed it as this person who they call like an occult writer, as just like spewing random theories.
It feels like side.
Yeah, it was just somebody talking at you.
Yeah.
It's like, or is it one of those things that's like, hey, while we're here, let's learn about like Japanese mythology and shit, all that. And but it's like, no, this is plot relevant. You should have been paying attention. Like there was a quiz. Like, oh, whoa. You said this wouldn't be on the quiz, Professor. But whatever. I made a face there because we're on camera, and I just realized, like, oh yeah, podcast.
It was a funny face. Trust us.
Thank you.
I guess I don't know how to feel about some of the directions that the game goes. Like, it starts off as a very much this whole feast is supernatural, and then it moves into directions of, well, it's actually not supernatural, it's all social, but also there's a giant monster that is supernatural, but then we also have to take care of things that aren't supernatural. It's like, just pick a lane,
Well, I think like ultimately that's kind of the issue, is like Raging Loop almost has trouble figuring out what it wants to be. Like, it's still fun, and I think like it's like definitely like a B grade kind of thing, not in like a cheap way, but just in like a sort of like, this isn't like, it's like a popcorn movie kind of thing.
Felt like it had to do too many things where it could have just done a couple things really well.
And honestly, some of the best parts are the strategy behind playing werewolf when there are stakes for the characters.
I really loved that. That was such a good,
which is a great concept for a game, but then it has the loss problem. It has to have this great big backstory and introduce it to you, and then sort of somehow resolve this like supernatural backstory in a satisfying way when it's been focused on the minor on the little details and character relationships.
Yeah.
And that is so hard to pull off.
Like 3/4 of the way into the game, it just stops being about that kind of social aspect of people and the kind of game theory and stuff like that. And it just becomes all this other stuff.
And it's like a little bit of everything, right? It's a little bit of like Scooby-Doo, where like, hey, there's, it's all like a game. Like, really, like you think it's supernatural and it's not. And then it's a little bit of Bloodborne, and and it's like, well, fucking pick one. Like what am I doing here? But and it's just like everything. It's supernatural and it's fake, and there's gods, and there's a big monster, and
like they've got like those like Cthulhu gods. They've got like Rikako the vacuous spider. Like they've got everything there, and then they also have all this other stuff. And it's tough to resolve having like 7 different parts of like narratives and games into one.
And then there's this robot bear.
It's just it's a little all over the place, and it, especially having the Rikiko line and like introducing sexual violence like this late in the game and like all this kind of stuff. It's so wild, and I feel like Haruki gives these lectures in the end about how like kami is really like that your beliefs are powerful, and that it doesn't really matter if something is real or not. It's the belief in what's right that like that like affects society, regardless of what that belief is based on. And then also the spider's real and evil and wants to kill everyone. Like it dilutes the message. It makes it confusing, and at the end, I'm still not entirely sure what the message was meant to be. What did Haruki learn from this? It's just another Indiana Jones ass adventure of Haruki Fusaishi, and now he's gonna like go off on another adventure in the next movie.
Like, I really like that they kind of touch on the idea of myths and legends having a kind of power and beliefs having power, and you can, things can be real if you believe in them. That's like a really cool kind of premise that they touch on a little bit, but then they just wander around and start doing other things.
Yeah. And I think they have a real, I think Hiroaki set up to be a stand-in for us, right? He's a stand-in for your typical video game protagonist, which is just you put in the game. But at the same time, they keep wanting to add aspects of a character to him without resolving any of that. Like, there's no movement with him.
Yeah, he doesn't grow. I do like that he's a writer, though. I feel like that's very fitting.
Yeah, like, I like that he's a writer and he brings that kind of skill to this kind of environment where he's about, like, telling stories and convincing people. Like, because a story is just a well-made lie,
Alan Wake went a really weird, different direction.
I like it because it explains why he knows so much stuff in a very superficial way, because he did research for his books.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what is this, Murder, She Wrote? Like, he's solving fucking, like, werewolf shit here, Like, get out of here. No, it's fine. It's just, it's unsatisfying, because that's a big mic drop moment when he's like, when they realize he lies all the time, and he says, Edo, and then one of them's like, Edo, my name's Haruaki Fusashi. It's like, holy shit, he's been lying about everything? And it's like, what is it? He's a writer. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not like, no.
I mean, it becomes plot relevant, but it is a little disappointing that it wasn't something bigger. Like, he was like, maybe in a game this wild where it's like, giant spider gods and dream sheep, he's like, what could Haruaki be? Oh, he's just a writer.
It's like Chekhov's gun's not supposed to miss. Like, like, oh
my
we went
God.
off, that's the rules. Like, all right, fine. But
Chekhov's gun jammed.
yeah. No, and I do get, yes, it does resolve a plot element, but then it becomes that they only did it for that one plot element to get around the little promise they made to, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it cheapens it a bit. That's my point.
And we don't ever learn Haraki's real name, but it doesn't matter. He's not real, so.
Take that back.
Thank goodness he's not real, honestly. What an ass. There are enough assholes like that in the world.
Oh, I think we know what his real name is. Slow Beef is your favorite character in the world.
Who is it?
It's what's his face from Shibuya Scramble.
No, now stop that right now. That's Minoru Minorukawa is the name.
Minorukawa.
Yeah, it's not. It's
when he was young, he was more of an asshole when he was younger.
Right, if he was older, he would have just interviewed the monster and fixed everything.
Haruaki. All right, you know what? No, actually, he would have done that gamble though of like going back to the sheep. Like, I need you to go back even further.
He just would have pointed his finger at him.
And the sheep would have been like, "I told you I can't do that." He goes, "You got to give 100%."
Yeah. Overall, I think this was a enjoyable, fun kind of game. Just like you might like have a enjoyable sort of action movie or something, and you don't think about it that hard, and then you're like, oh, it was fun, okay, sure.
For all the kind of plot missteps that the game takes, I think the game gets major points, for me at least, for how accessible it is and how easy it is to play, pick up, come back to. All your, it's not a situation where you have to kind of pick and search and try to find the hidden keys that you missed. And at the end, the game is nice and it gives you revelation mode where it's like some scenes have extra content and story stuff, and they tell you, the scenes are marked with a star. You can just go there and read it and enjoy yourself. And by the way, when you get back, there's going to be extras and movies and all kind of other good stuff here for you. So it's a very nice game.
They put a lot of work in this game.
It's a very accommodating game.
Yeah.
And the plot does move too. Like, it draws you in and it keeps going. Like, there are definitely some parts where it stops and it bogs down. The ending has a few parts where it bogs down, but it draws you in and keeps you going, which is, that's a strength.
Like, this is a novel where we had situations where we agreed to stop and some people had problems stopping. And I'm actually one of them. So
yeah, it's a page turner.
That's strong. That's a good job by the game there.
Yeah.
What's a visual novel term for a page turner? It's a screen clicker.
It's a button clicker.
It's a real cookie clicker.
It's a box. It's a It's a box mover. I don't know. But,
It's an index finger twitcher.
It's a text parser.
It's a wrist strainer. Wait.
That's a different kind of visual novel.
no, it isn't. What do you call it? So I don't know. All right, I'll ask. All right, is the extra content like worth it? Is it good? Good.
Yeah. So let's talk about the extra content, because I do think we need to read at least part of it and talk about it. So there's two parts to it. There's 5 short stories that tell you what happened to various characters after the game. Some of these are more important than others. If I had to choose, then definitely everyone should read the last of these, which is the sheep story. It tells you what's the deal with Mitsuji's and the organization.
Well, I want to know that. Yeah, definitely.
There's one with what's happening with Nosato and Rikako, which is nice.
Good for them.
It just reveals some more stuff that the game doesn't tell you.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I was hoping for a deeper dive on Rikako.
Well, maybe now that the spider's not in her head anymore, she chills the fuck out.
Yeah. It's probably a very nice happy end.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a past there that I don't know that you can get past. Get over.
Well, maybe that just makes things interesting. I don't know.
I mean, he's into it.
No, trust me, the spider made me rapey.
He's into it. He's into it. You know, there's no other girl for him. I mean, honestly, if those are his tastes, then there really isn't.
They sit on the couch and watch Master Musume.
That's not really a Tinder page you want to write.
Well, these are the two that I think you should read. The rest of those are, there's one with Haruaki and Chiemi, which is basically just they go on another adventure. Nothing really important there.
Does Mochi have one?
Yeah, there's one with Mochi and Haru, which is where you get the stuff about the inn that Haruaki was at the beginning of this episode.
Well, I don't want it to be Mochi and horror. I want it to just be Mochi fucking around for a story.
It's Mochi and Haru. It's really stupid. The premise of this story is really stupid. You do get, it's the kind of story that's really funny and crazy, and then you have a really serious scene in the middle. Mm-hmm. It's a serious dramatic scene. So you do get to learn exactly what happened to Haru at the night where her parents were killed and she wandered into Yasumizu. So they tell you about that. And there's another one with Mamiya and what's his name?
Hashimoto.
No. The Oribe kid.
Oh, Yasunaga?
Yeah.
Oh, because college?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because he was all into the background stuff.
He comes to Tokyo to look for colleges and he meets her and they have an adventure of their own. That's not really good or important.
I imagine she starts talking and doesn't stop for 20 minutes. Is that the story?
Yeah. The things I think we should definitely read is the Rikako one and the Mitsuji one. Just because they reveal stuff about the story that I think should have been in the actual story but isn't. For some reason.
Okay, I'm down with that just because we can all react to it and be at the very least we'd be what the what? Why would you say this?
It's apparently really easy to do because you can just go right to the revelation scene, so.
The rest aren't bad, and they're not long either, so you can read them, but they're just not as important. And then Revelation Mode is long, but it's really easy to get to because you can skip everything that's not new. And I didn't read all of it yet. I think basically what we should do with Revelation Mode is just go to the part of the story where you're interested to figure out what is going on in the background. So in the first 2 routes, they have scenes for exactly what the wolves were doing every night. So you get to see exactly what they were planning and why they did what they did.
Neat.
And the beginning is nice. Definitely go read the first scene where Haruaki goes into the convenience store for the first time. And exactly what went through his head when he saw Mitsuji there.
I love that. They pretend they don't know each other just out of pettiness.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And there's no one else there. It's great. Sorry,
There's no one else.
So I think we should read the Rikako story, the Mitsuji story, and then just go to Revelation Mode and read whatever interests you in it. You can just jump anywhere and read stuff.
Okay.
Then, yeah, we should have one more episode about that and just our final thoughts about the game.
Sounds good. We'll
Sounds
see
good.
you folks on the other side.
Oh,
Bah.
or something.
Bah. Meh.
Nah.